this is a problem that needs to be solved. Initially, we used to define ourselves as a sustainable marketplace, but now we've sort of repositioned to calling ourselves a completely vegan marketplace because that really defines what we are.
From health to climate change, why is sustainability so important?
It always starts with someone.
If tomorrow I had to change one thing about my diet that made me from a vegetarian to a vegan, what would that be?
We're contaminating not only our territories, we're contaminating other territories all across the world.
Athletes have access to the best nutritionists, to the best trainers. Like, brands are willing to give them their stuff because they're getting promoted. People are like, okay, athletes are healthy people. If they're doing this, why can't I?
Like I said, I think that is the biggest challenge. The world is in turmoil because I believe people are oblivious to the consequences that their actions and their lifestyle are creating on our planet. Or rather, I think they choose to be oblivious rather than them being oblivious. And I believe that's because they haven't seen the impact that their actions may cause on a direct level. It is something, of course, that through years and years of, habitual lifestyles that we see this impact be created. Now that you're seeing climate change, global warming, all of these things come into effect, people are sort of realizing, but even then, they're choosing to be oblivious to a lot of these things because they believe that, it may not be as their personal lifestyle may not sort of help the planet in any way. And I believe that is the biggest cause, and that is the biggest scare for us and for people in this space. Our biggest incentive here is to educate and inform these people as well as all of us, educate ourselves also on how we can sort of, make a habitual shift in our lifestyle and then sort of help planet Earth thrive once again. I think that's something that we're all working towards.
Swayam, this often happens that we get to compounding very late in an episode. We've gotten to it multiple times, but I feel like here we're pretty much starting with that fact because, as you said, people don't realize their own impact. I think it's because they're like, what can one person do or one family? How much impact is it going to have? But it's not just them. It's each person thinking that way, and that just sort of, that graph goes up exponentially.
Like I said, I think that is the biggest challenge for us. I think the biggest challenge is how can one educate the masses here, and how can you make them more aware of that it's not just, it's not a single action that can lead to a change, but it's, like you said, a compounding effect. If I'm starting today, I'll give you my example. I've started, being a lot more mindful on my habits, my lifestyle. I've moved to a vegan diet. I've moved to more conscious purchases when it comes to, my spendings. And that has then also sort of led to a reflection in my family and how we're seeing a lot of, purchases being made at home, how we're seeing a gradual shift in not only on my family, but then that moving ahead and moving forward to, my friends and people around me. So I believe in the power of influence is something that we often, neglect or sort of take too lightly.
So, the question I have for you, and I have a story before I have the question. So, the amount of carbon that you can save by being sustainable all of your life is the same that a factory emits in 2 minutes. Okay, let's digest that. Can a single person actually make a difference? They had a plastic campaign where companies had started using PET bottles. PET bottles were much cheaper, right? It's much cheaper than glass bottles. So how do you offload the garbage problem in a PET bottle? You offload the garbage problem to the public. You tell the public, did you not throw your garbage properly? Are you not keeping the streets clean? While the corporations can keep pumping bottles into the society, trash bags into the society, right? Who is responsible? the individual or the corporations? And can an individual make a difference?
So a single person making a difference, yes, absolutely. Because like I said, it starts with a single person. Then that's not where it ends though. It carries forward to 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, 20 people, 50, hundreds, millions, right? So the compounding effect we spoke about earlier, I think that's what's in play. And it may feel like, okay, I am making a difference here. I'm the only one doing it. No one else is doing it. But that's, again, maybe that's a change in perception that someone needs to have and make sure that they're at it. They're not just giving up because they don't see a change. I think it's important for someone to then, if they truly believe in the cause, they truly relate to it, for them to then influence their friends, their family, their immediate sort of surroundings where they have the power to have that conversation with their friends and family. So I don't think a single person cannot have that impact. I definitely believe it starts with someone, right? It starts with a small step. It starts with, someone starting, someone educating someone else, and then this compounding over, and a lot of other people then believing in that cause, understanding and being aware and educated, and then of course seeing the greater good, and then that sort of really helps for whatever cause, not only this the climate change cause, but for whatever cause there is, right? Anything you're doing, it always starts with someone.
So I think this blame or who is responsible, this is the question that I wish we had a better answer to than, oh, one person can make a difference, or, oh, corporations are more responsible than people, or people are more responsible than corporations, whatever it may be. If we had that answer, I feel like the world today and all of us would have a much clearer vision. Now, you said that one person's carbon savior is equivalent to 2 minutes of emissions by a corporation, but there's 8 billion people. So then again, you have to scale that up. And, this is a conversation that can just keep going on and on and on without us coming to a definitive answer. Let's go on to the definitive part. What are you doing about it, Swayam?
So I'd just like to add on to what you mentioned, Bill. I don't think there's anyone to be blamed in particular, right? I wouldn't want to point finger at someone saying that person to be blamed. I would just like to put it in terms of, we weren't as aware of the consequences earlier, but now that we can make a change now. So why not do it now? So if people don't make the change now, then we know who to point fingers and to blame to, because they're not making the change. Whereas I don't think we should go back and point fingers at, okay, who is to blame? Because again, that can be a blame game that can be carried forward and passed on to each person individual. So other than that, I believe the bigger perspective here, at least for me, is ensuring that henceforth, at least, we have people who are making that change and who are understanding the need of the hour, and then moving ahead, and then we know who exactly to blame and who not to. And coming to what we're currently doing, right? So let me quickly introduce Suspire, which I haven't done yet. So 2 years ago, I founded this brand called Suspire, which is an e-commerce marketplace for vegan, sustainable, cruelty-free products. We now currently have more than 280 brands across various categories, such as apparel, accessories and footwear, beauty and personal care, food and beverages, home and stationery. So there's a lot of different categories out here, and we're growing in terms of onboarding more brands on a weekly basis. So I think on a weekly basis, we at least have 2 or 3 more brands coming on board. We're seeing a huge demand for this as well, increasing in terms of the kind of products that we're offering, but also an increase in supply, where we're seeing more and more brands coming this space, reaching out to us to onboard onto our platform. So it's really validating what we're currently doing, and it feels like this is here to stay. It's only picking up in India especially, but I think it's very it feels very validating for someone like me who is starting this to realize that there is both supply and demand in this particular sector, and that's only here to grow and here to stay.
If you had to say, this is my ethos, or a brand has to check these 3 check boxes, what would they be?
So everyone has a different definition of the word sustainability, right? So I think initially we used to define ourselves as a sustainable marketplace, but now we've sort of repositioned to calling ourselves a completely vegan marketplace, because that really defines what we are. and then coming back to the whole sustainability definition, right? That, like I said, the definition of the word is different for each and every individual that you may ask on the street today, right? For us, what that means is trying to be more mindful and choosing the best alternate that is available to you, which is the best for not only yourself, but also for the planet, right? And not only in terms of purchases, but sustainability also has a greater impact in terms of working conditions, right? To ensure that the workforce that you hire are well paid, there's, equal sort of wages between men and women, and also in terms of just that, working conditions and the hours that they put in. So multiple sort of factors that come into play when you define the word sustainability. But for us as Suspire, let me now define it per category. So when it comes to the apparel space, we only onboard brands that use materials like organic cotton, bamboo, hemp, linen, tencel, right? These are materials that are plant-based, that consume a lot less water than, say, another fabric would. For example, we don't even onboard cotton, 100% cotton, because cotton as a material is very water intensive and uses a lot of pesticides. And there is a better alternative to that, which is organic cotton, which does not use as much water and does not have any pesticide. Now, some people can debate whether that's actually being done or not. But well, this is a generic definition that we have, at least, and that's what we follow. Like I said, we have other fabrics and materials that we do on board that are all completely plant-based and biodegrade, right? When it comes to the food and beverage sector, we only onboard brands that are 100% vegan. And when it comes to beauty and skincare, only vegan and cruelty-free brands, once again. And then the same logic follows for, say, any textile product when it comes to maybe your bed linens and, your home furnishing, curtains or whatever else is needed. However, we do make an exception when it comes to accessories and footwear. This is one category where I am openly admitting that we're not 100% sustainable, and I'll tell you why. So initially, when we did go live, we went live with brands that use materials like vegan leather, which is nothing but PU. There are brands now who have come up and are using materials like Peanutex, which is pineapple leather. There's cactus leather. There's all sorts of grape leather, apple leather, plant-based and fruit-based leathers coming up, which are a lot more sustainable than, say, a PU or an animal skin leather, right? For us, the only reason we made the exception of onboarding brands that use PU is because at that time, and even now, plant and fruit-based leather brands aren't as accessible or affordable to the masses yet. In India especially, there are not a lot of brands who are making stuff in the accessories and footwear space from plant and fruit-based leathers. And even if they are, they're priced at an exorbitant, price. So they're not as accessible and affordable to the masses, which is why we made the exception of onboarding that, because according to us, PU is still better than your animal leather, right? We're calling ourselves a vegan marketplace. So that's one area where I completely admit that we're not 100% sustainable, but we are transitioning towards that. As and when we see more plant and fruit-based leather brands in India, we will completely phase out the PU brands and only ensure that, the plant and fruit-based leathers or whatever the new technology there is, which is making, sustainable materials more accessible and affordable, is on our platform.
So nutrition is a very close topic to my heart. I was very unhealthy. I was very fat. I'm still fat, but not as fat. But I have experimented with every diet on the planet that you can imagine. So I was vegan for 6 months of my life. I saw this movie called Game Changers, and that turned me vegan. I was like, let me try it. Now, veganism has all the bells and whistles of sustainability and of everything is nice and good for you. But then vegan food is highly processed, which is a huge issue. So when I want cheese, I'll have like a processed version of the cheese. When I want, meat alternative, it is a highly processed soy patty, right? Or a highly processed gluten-based chicken alternative. These things are innately not good for the human body. So I want to keep it to nutrition first, and then let's go to the other side of vegan good. Do you genuinely believe that vegan is a nutritious enough diet for one to go to? Because it cannot be sustained without supplements. And Are you vegan yourself? Are you an advocate of veganism?
I would like to disagree to the fact that all vegan food, or at least most of the vegan food, is processed.
Not, but everything that is an alternative to me being able to switch to vegan is processed.
Again, to that as well. So let's take each category, right? Let's say dairy, for example. Let's start with milk, butter, cheese, ghee, curd, right? These are the 5 things I think that that sort of form, and paneer, right? So let's say these are 6 things that form what a dairy diet looks like. There is an alternate to each of those now in the vegan space, right? It may not taste as good, or it may not feel the same. However, we're seeing I think the first time I sort of tried a vegan diet was at least 3 years ago. From then to now, I think there's been a massive shift in how, with technology, with R&D, how the vegan alternates are getting a lot closer to I would say, the dairy products, right? So let's say milk, for example. There is endless amounts of plant-based alternatives in the milk space when it comes to, say, oat milk, almond milk, soy milk. There's hazelnut milk, there's walnut milk, there's rice milk, different sorts of nut and plant-based milks, which taste delicious. And I wouldn't say those are processed. Now, in terms of nutrients, right, when it comes to whether a human diet, if a vegan diet can give you those nutrients, I don't believe it's a direct comparison. I believe if you have a wholesome diet where it comes to you take in those where you consume tofu, you consume your lentils, you consume your various sources of plant-based protein, and then you also have your plant-based supplements. I'm not saying that you wouldn't need to take your supplements. I definitely believe plant-based supplements are needed for, maybe, say, omega, your D3 or D12. For a vegan diet, I think that is needed. Multivitamins may also be needed, but you also get plant-based supplements for that, which are not harmful. It's completely fine to take those on a daily basis, right? So you take those backed with your vegan diet, and I think you have a very, very solid diet, which isn't really nutrition deficient. I think you can definitely manage to get all the nutrients you need if you also happen to take a few supplements. I think that's definitely possible, and we have seen so many examples. I'm sure there's so many different people who are pro this. There are so many athletes who are vegan, who consume a vegan diet. If sort of they can get all the nutrition they need, I think it's all about trial and error. It's all about how you consume what's best for yourself, and how you can find the nutrients from the food that you have available for you. I think it's possible.
While you say it's possible, I often feel that currently vegan diets, or these diets where you're taking a lot of plant-based supplements or lack of processed foods, oftentimes these are for like the top 1% or 0.1% because of the amount that they cost, because of the lack of availability worldwide. You say athletes have access to the best nutritionists, to the best trainers. Like, brands are willing to give them their stuff because they're getting promoted. Because coming on the podcast and saying athletes are doing this, so people are like, okay, athletes are healthy people. If they're doing this, why can't I? Game Changers said the same thing, where they gave the example of like football players in American football, I'm talking about, who are having vegan diets, and they were like, my energy is so much higher, and this, that, and the other. And I remember seeing it and being like, okay, this was also like a couple of years back when COVID was at its peak. And when I tried to look at stuff that was available, everything was priced at like 3x, 4x of what's their, what do I say, standard alternative, non-vegan alternative. What is the word to use? Food.
I think that's a very fair point, and I cannot disagree that. Right? It is a vegan diet or vegan alternatives, plant-based alternatives are priced higher than your vegetarian average diet, right? Or a non-veg diet, for example. I don't think there is any denial to that. However, what I'd like to say here is it's all about economies of scale eventually, right? I mean, the more people consuming a particular thing, the more supply increasing and the pricing reducing for that. So I believe while currently it may feel like it's highly priced. I mean, I felt the same way 3 years ago, but I have seen a difference in the reduction in prices, and more accessible and affordable options already come into play, say in 2024, April 20th, when we're recording today. However, this will of course continue further. So say in a couple of years time, I'm very positive, very sure that there will be so many more brands who are able to offer us the alternates that we need in similar pricing to what we're being currently given by say the other alternates, that the vegetarian alternates that we're speaking about. So I think it's all about economies of scale here, and with more demand, which is increasing on a daily basis as we speak, the supply as well will back that up, and we will see more accessible, affordable options.
From health to climate change, why is sustainability so important? Like, it's fine. The world has been running as it has. It has been running for ages. Industrial revolution happened. Everyone is living a better life. Do I really need change? Do I really need coconut-made leather? Do I really need X, Y, Z? What's your opinion on this, and why are you so driven behind this?
I think this is pretty much out there and people are aware. Of course, one factor is the fact that the more the demand for non-vegetarian diets, the more you need, more cattle being raised, and the more cattle being raised, you're seeing deforestation take place because you need more land and need more space for these animals then to sort of for them to breed and for them to sort of get their food and for them to graze. With that being done, I think what we're not realizing as individuals on a daily basis is that with increasing in cattle grazing, they also then have to be fed when they're being fed various sort of grains and food that requires to be grown, and we're growing that just for those animals. There's a lot of waste then which comes from there's a lot of greenhouse gases that are created because of the excretion of these animals.
So the cows are taking up space. All of that space could have been utilized for other food. Approximately 80% of all the food that is produced in the world is for cows and not for human beings. Were it to be produced for human beings, everybody would have food. Outside that, cows produce a lot of CO2 emission, methane with burps and farts and XYZ that we can severely decrease. Enteric fermentation is a huge issue for the world, as the viewers might have seen in our other episode, Biosarthi. And, well, these are genuine issues and they are hurting the world. How do we change this?
By being more mindful of your purchase and moving to a more vegan diet. And I wouldn't say it's possible for someone to just make the shift drastically, and I don't think that's realistic for anyone to expect. It's all about taking a plunge and taking a step, and at least starting somewhere and realizing that you don't have to sort of give up on a lot because there are so many alternatives out there now. So it could be something like just joining a challenge for a month, right? Like a vegan New Year challenge, which happens every Jan, I believe, and just starting for a month, and then a month of just being vegan, and say a lot of people doing that who ideally were to sort of consume a non-vegetarian diet. That is a massive change in itself in just 1 month, right? Them realizing the importance of doing this and then taking a step. So I think it's a step-by-step process. I don't believe, we're speaking about this today and then tomorrow maybe someone, completely switching. I don't think that's realistically possible for us to ask as well. I think it's a gradual change, and with them realizing and being made more aware about why they need to is how this is going to happen.
So if you had to suggest first steps, what would be our first step? Like going vegan for 1 month might still be a big step for a lot of people. If tomorrow I had to change one thing about my diet that made me from a vegetarian to a vegan, what would that be?
You could start with something as simple as replacing your dairy with the plant alternative that there are currently. It could mean stopping paneer altogether, going towards tofu. It could mean not consuming your cow or buffalo milk and moving towards something like oat milk or an almond milk or soy milk, right? And you can try. There's so many different types of plant and nut-based milks out there. You could try which one you like and stick to that. Something as small as that, which trust me is not a big change, because I have gone through that. I mean, not that I was non-veg. I've always been a vegetarian. I've been a Jain, and now being a vegan. I think moving from a dairy diet to a completely vegan diet, um, the biggest challenge for me, of course, was the paneer and the cheese bit. But when it comes to milk, or when it comes to even paneer now, actually, there's tofu. There's so many ways you could use tofu, and now even tempeh, for example, different sorts of proteins that these sort of food give you. They're so functional in the way you can use them, and you can use them in multiple ways. So I believe the easiest way, I think, for someone to at least take the first step and try a vegan diet would be giving up on milk and moving towards a plant or nut-based milk.
Economics is the study of human behavior. And I feel economics is the best way to judge if something is working, something is not working, if anything is changing. Funnily enough, you have a business. So let's talk about the economics of your business. How has it been? Have people been receptive to a sustainable marketplace? What kind of revenues have you been able to drive? Let's dive deeper.
All right. So when we started initially, I think we weren't even doing one order a day, right? I think we were still trying to like set our feet and get the basics and fundamentals right, try to see what works best, what doesn't. When we started off, we only started with apparel and accessories. We did not have the other categories that I spoke about. We started off with 30 odd brands, and I think we were struggling on a daily basis to see what is working, what isn't. So, and of course, those were learning days that we were seeing. We had just launched the brand, so a lot of initial sort of early days where we were trying to do a lot of trial and error and see what is working, what isn't. Moving ahead, what we realized was food and beverages is such a big category in the vegan space that there are thousands of brands, at least in India, who are in this space. So we then onboarded, a lot of food and beverage brands. We then had beauty and personal care on as well, because there's so many vegan and cruelty-free beauty and personal care brands nowadays as well. So I think that switch and the transition to getting these categories onboarded on Suspire as well really helped us ground our base even and solidify our base even more. Post that, I think we've been seeing a good month-on-month increase in terms of orders and customers. We're seeing good retention. We're seeing, people coming back on Suspire and shopping for maybe the same thing they're buying, because of course, if you're offering them perishable items, beauty and personal care as well as food and beverages, they're going to keep coming back and shopping for that. As well as with more and more brands coming in this space, I think there is, on a daily basis where we ourselves are learning that there are so many alternates to your daily need that in the sustainable space that, you can just go ahead and try them. Yesterday, we had a brand onboarded which sells bamboo tissue, and at the same price of, say, a normal, tissue paper that you see, which made from wood pulp. So if we're seeing those alternates out there at a similar price point, why wouldn't someone want to take that step to at least try it out? I mean, now in terms of how it feels, there could be differences in how it feels to their face, and there could be a lot of differences there. But for them to try that out, I think, which also covers the previous point we spoke about the pricing. This is a great step. We're seeing equal pricing, in a lot of categories, and that's incentivizing more people to sort of take a plunge and try those products out, because I guess somewhere they also understand that if it is at the same price, why not just try it out and then see how it goes. So and in terms of wages, it is where I think our economics work in a way where we're taking a commission from the brand that's around Suspire. And which is that commission is how we sort of earn some money, right? But we're also evaluating other revenue models, such as pushing more corporate gifting, focusing more on B2B. Probably we started our own merchandise. The sweatshirt you see I'm wearing is Aspire branded. So we've sold a lot of those. We've sold a lot of our t-shirts that we've made, completely made from organic cotton. So yeah, we're evaluating into various sort of aspects. But I think our base remains to be a marketplace where we continue onboarding more relevant brands in this space, and through that give the customers an avenue to purchase alternates that they can and create a bigger difference.
So can we get some numbers on here? Can we get a GMV or a number of orders a day? What are you doing currently?
Let me tell you where we were before versus where we are now. Like I said, we were struggling to even get one order a day initially when we just went live. Currently, we're doing around 40 to 50 orders a day, and an average order value could be anywhere between 1,000 to 1,200. I would say that's the range. So yeah, that's where we are currently.
So when you mentioned marketplace, there is one name that comes up. In India, there is a couple of names that come up. How do you stand out? What is driving me towards Suspire? Because I'll tell you very honestly, I hadn't heard of it before I heard it.
Absolutely, I think that again is a second missing piece to the puzzle. First, of course, like I mentioned, how do we educate and inform consumers about how they can make a change, and second is how we can get our branding and our story out there, right? One avenue, of course, is through this podcast. So, of course, when you talk about marketplaces, when you talk about e-commerce experience, shopping experiences, there are standard names that come out: Amazon, Flipkart, Myntra, right? Nykaa. These are all giants in the e-commerce marketplace space. When it comes to what differentiates us from them and why someone should come to Suspire and not them, it's, I think, the curation of brands and the belief and the ethos that we have. If you truly believe in wanting to find something sustainable and you believe in the cause that we're currently associated with, you can trust us no matter what. You can come to Suspire, anything you buy from any brand, from any product, and you are assured that this is the best or one of the best alternatives out there for you. And you can trust us when we're doing the process for you, we're vetting the brands, we're onboarding those brands who are completely vegan, right? So you can trust us and buy anything blindly. But when it comes to other marketplaces, you may not be able to get that trust factor. You may have to then do your own research, which will be harder for you to find which product, which brand to look at. Whereas under us, we're an umbrella where you can get whatever you want, one-stop shop, everything. You don't have to look at other places and other brands.
Why do I trust you, someone who has built this? Who are you? Why should I put all of my faith in you and give you money to buy stuff and believe that whatever I will get blindly will be nice?
I think this is the story that you have to then associate with. You have to again, I think finding more ways to put myself out there. And again, this podcast is one of those ways. If you listen to this, you know that, and you probably can see how genuine and passionate I am about this and the cause that I'm associated to. And if you can see that, and you do also do your homework, I think it's very important for each and every individual to do their own homework, their own research, go through our website, go through the about us section.
I want a deeper answer. There are several events that happen in life, or there is a single event that happens in life that transitions your life completely over its head, right? You are spending the best part of your life, your single life, developing Suspire. What is the event that caused that? Made you believe in sustainable marketing?
Not Suspire. We want your story.
You, Swayam.
Why do you care?
Understood. So this started back in 2019. I was done with my master's due to COVID. I couldn't really do my internship in person, but I managed to get an online internship at this company in Berlin, which happened to be a similar sort of idea that what we're currently doing. They were a similar marketplace for sustainable brands in Europe. I interned there for 6 months. They offered me a job, but unfortunately I couldn't because there were no visas available at that point due to COVID. Offices were shut. It was taking months and months to sort of get an appointment. So I had to pass it on, and then came back home, and then eventually decided to start Suspire with a friend. We had a co-founder initially. My friend and I started Suspire. But just before we started Suspire, we were also on this dive trip. We'd gone to the Andaman Islands, Andaman Nicobar Islands. We were in Havelock doing scuba diving. He was doing the open water course. I was doing my advanced open water course. What really got us really interested in this, when we were diving, we saw loads and heaps and loads of plastic all the way from Thailand. You could see the packaging, and you could see, and then when I saw the packaging, and it was even in shallow water. So I showed it to my instructor there. He's like, "This is coming from Thailand," because it was in Thai. It wasn't a language I was well versed with. So when I asked him, he said, "This is coming all the way from Thailand and Indonesia," and that to us was like, wow, where. And it wasn't just a single plastic wrapper; it was loads of it. It was all across the shore, and it was just disgusting for us to see. And we were really sort of shocked by how and what the massive issue here is. We're contaminating our waters. We're contaminating not only our territories, we're contaminating other territories all across the world. And it was honestly a very eye-opening moment for us, where we truly sort of connected with each other and understood that this is a problem that needs to be solved. We cannot sort of just continue living life the way we're living, and ignoring and being ignorant about our lifestyle. Post that, I think we got to thinking. We went to the drawing board, understood what needs to be done, and then I thought of, why not starting something similar, that from my experience in the internship, why not starting something similar here? Because India needs that. We need more awareness about this, and that was the story of Suspire.
Couple of things, fun. So before the podcast, I was like, let's check out what Suspire is. And I typed Suspire on Google. Google changed my query of Suspire to Suspire XL, and it took me to a medicine. I had to remove Suspire XL, and when I then searched Suspire, it took me to the Suspire website. What have you guys done in terms of making yourself more reachable? Number one. And two, does the name Suspire come from sustainability and aspire smushed together?
That's a question we get asked all the time. I'll answer the second question before I answer the first one. The word Suspire actually, as a word by itself, means to breathe in. And I'm surprised that when you type Suspire, the definition didn't show up, nor did we show up. It took you to some other website, which is quite surprising.
It didn't take me to the website. It changed the query. Like Google added on XL to, like the predictive text of Google added on Suspire XL, which is, I think, a medicine. So it populated my Google feed with like a bunch of medicines. And I was like, no, this is not what I'm looking for. Then I removed the XL, and that's when it showed me Suspire's website.
Interesting. That's actually the first we're hearing of this. We haven't been made aware of anyone having this issue, but it's great to know. So maybe we can do something about that. But
I had the experience, by the way.
You did?
Yeah, and we were doing it in isolation. It was not.
Yeah.
So same.
So you typed, what is Suspire? What did you type?
Type Suspire.
USPI, and it became Suspire XL instead of becoming Suspire. And you press enter, and it goes into the medicine. It won't happen for you. You need to do it in incog.
Of course. Yeah. So I'll check that out. Thanks for bringing that to my notice, firstly. But so Suspire as a word by itself means to breathe in, right? And this is something that showed up on Google every time we tapped Suspire initially, right? Every time we tapped Suspire, the definition used to show up, because the Oxford Dictionary had this as a word, and it means to breathe in, which sort of really resonated with us. We were looking at names for what we should be calling our marketplace, and we wanted to be connected to sustainability. So we were looking at words around sus and, trying to figure out what we could do. And then we landed up on Suspire. We found it. And then I think that's the instant moment we realized that the word by itself means to breathe in. I think it just connected because, like you interpreted the word, it could also have various interpretations: sustainable, inspiration, sustainable, empire, aspire to live sustainably. There's so many different things that you can, interpret it as. So it just sort of made sense. And then we call ourselves the Sustainable Empire, Suspire. Yeah. And what we're doing to sort of promote ourselves and put ourselves more out there, I think performance marketing and digital advertising is our biggest source of income, as well as the biggest spends, right? Where we're pushing a lot on SEO, we're pushing a lot on Google ads, we're pushing a lot on Meta ads, we're doing a lot of collaborations with influencers, we're doing various giveaways, all sorts of, Instagram posts, and we're very active on digital and social media channels. And I think that's currently our biggest source and our biggest drive for pushing ourselves out there.
So, Swayam, we have a tradition on this podcast where the previous guest has left a question for you. Please answer that question and leave a question for the next guest.
Yes, sir.
The question for you is, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail?
I mean, I would continue building what I'm currently building because I know that I wouldn't particularly fail at building Suspire and growing Suspire. So if I knew that for sure, it's a no-brainer. I would continue doing what I'm currently doing and be even more motivated because, of course, for me currently and for all entrepreneurs, motivation, comes and goes. You're always worried by the outcome and the results. But if I knew that I wouldn't fail for sure, I think every day, day in and day out, I would just be even more dedicated and even more focused than I already am towards this.
Love it, Swayam. Can we get your question now?
Ask them